Hey, just spending some more quality time with Mao Zedong. A lot of my life still involves the legacy of communism. And I have written in the past about cult phenomena within political organizations such as communism and within Buddhism, religious cult phenomena. I've done a lot of reading about cults under various headings. And sometimes I see Google search results for my name that actually reflect that, where I'm Googling my own name to try to find an article I published in the past, and I'm getting results for Robert J. Lifton, his analysis of the cult, definition of what a cult is, and so on. It's something I've been interested in for a long time. Just lately, there have been controversies leading vegans to ask questions about cult phenomena in veganism, to what extent veganism is a cult or might become a cult, etc. Most of those questions are not, of course, being asked sincerely. But you can do the following thought experiment to very rapidly ascertain just how much potential there is, indeed how inevitable it is, that we're going to get cult phenomena within veganism. And not just because, in as much as vegans are regular people, it's inevitable that someone in the NFL is vegan, someone who plays football is vegan, someone famous in the military is vegan. Any lifestyle choice of this kind will inevitably have luminaries, and inevitably also there will be some famous criminal who turns out to be vegan, just in as much as the vegan diet becomes part of the mainstream, if not any particular shade of the vegan ideology. We've already seen that. So in that sense, you might say cults are inevitable. But ask yourself this question. If I offered you an apartment for rent, which is identical to the apartment you're currently living in every way, except everyone in the apartment building is vegan, and the closest corner store, closest little grocery store, because of this, is also 100% vegan. Would you pay $100 more in rent per month to live in that apartment building instead of the apartment building you've already got? Now, if you're watching this and you're not vegan, it's still a pretty easy thought experiment to do, right? It's still pretty easy to think through how that decision would affect you or what would appeal to you about that. If you would you do it for $200? Would you do it for $300? How much more rent would you pay to live in exactly the same circumstances, except that you're in an exclusively vegan community? Once you've got that impulse in place, you've actually already got all the ingredients you need for cult phenomena to erupt. Don't believe me? Here's the same problem stated in different terms. If I were to offer you a job, it's the exact same job that you already have. In every way, whatever your job is, I'm offering you a different employer that's completely identical. Except everyone you work with is vegan, and the nearest lunchtime cafeteria, lunchtime restaurant, that sort of thing, for the same reason, is also all vegan. Would you switch jobs if it lowered your salary by $100 a month? Would you do it for $200 a month? $300? How much lower an income would you accept to be in the same job but surrounded by other vegans? Completely human impulse, completely natural tendency involved here. And you see it play out even with very moderate religious groups. The type of Judaism we have within Canada is on the whole pretty moderate, indeed pretty boring. It's not the stuff that you would expect cults to be made of. And yet in practice it is. And I remember we had a controversy in Toronto because local organized Jewish groups had set up their own bus company, a Jewish-only bus company, so that people taking the bus between Toronto and New York would be able to ride on a bus that was exclusively Jewish people on the bus, Jewish passengers. Now, this gets into questions of racism and segregation and what have you. I think there were a lot of questions raised there. But that bus company actually, it did not become controversial because of the government. The government of Canada didn't express any interest in it. Other bus companies raised a legal complaint about unfair competition, that in effect, all bus companies ought to be able to compete for the Jewish market freely and openly and fairly. And instead, this was closing off part of the market to competition. Obviously, you get into really difficult questions. I grew up in Toronto. Jewish people consider me Jewish. I consider myself an atheist, but obviously, in terms of ethnicity and other criteria, there still is a sense in which I'm Jewish. Going to an only Jewish retirement home, problematic. Just these questions of racism and segregation. Jewish-only schools, is that really what's good for people, and so on. As soon as you have people willing to make those sacrifices to separate themselves, you have all the ingredients you need for cult phenomena. I've read about and studied many, many different cults. One I remember recently, I saw here on YouTube, I saw some video interviews with people after the cult had fallen apart, and they said, very sympathetically, look, we made all these sacrifices just to live in this community, a planned community, with like-minded people, because that's something so precious to us. That was the only reward. They'd paid a lot of money, but also they had to kind of wear strange clothes and obey all these strange rules. But the one reward, what they got out of it, was living surrounded by like-minded people. And whoever you are watching this video, you may not have ever experienced that in your life. Depending on what country and what culture you come from, you may not know the deep instincts, so-called tribal instincts, whatever you want to say. You may not know the type of gratification in the human ego and the human heart that this appeals to. But it is so deeply rooted that as soon as you reach out to people and start manipulating them in this way, not only are they willing to make financial sacrifices, but that communitarian mentality can pretty quickly take over. So, it's coming. I mean, as I said before, yes, it's inevitable that we have sports heroes who are vegan, and, I don't know, singers and musicians and actors and actresses. It's maybe also inevitable we're going to have a mass murderer who's vegan. We're going to have some kind of infamous, hated public figure who's vegan. If it hasn't happened already, it's coming. And for all too human reasons, I can completely sympathize with the reasons. It's inevitable that vegans are going to form into a diversity of communes, shall we say. And some of them are going to go into that pattern that we've seen play out again and again with cults.